All right, welcome back. This is the lecture, second lecture for a topic is the lecture on the economic history of Papua New Guinea. All right, so we so far looked at the PNG legal system. We looked at the powers covered in the PNG legal system. We looked at separation of powers, the work of the Constitutional Planning Committee, how they sort of envisioned a constitution where human rights was protected, separation of powers between the executive, judiciary, and the legislature. Also, you see they talked about the organs of state, hierarchy of laws. All right, now let's look at some of the economic history of Papua New Guinea. A lot of studies have shown around in scholarly literature, a lot of books have said that Papua New Guinea or Papua New Guineans was one of the earliest societies in which gardening and farming of the land was said to have occurred. Basically, people relied on a subsistence lifestyle. The islanders, we sort of worked the land to yield the crops that we have. We looked after pigs and all. And then the coastal people basically relied on the sea. They're very skillful and crafty seafarers, relying on the ocean for sustenance. Basically, we live this sort of this way, basically relying on our gardens and the sea for its sustenance. And then occasionally you would have the barter system. So barter system, the famous one was the Uri Moale sort of barter system where all the Motuan villages will get the Lakatois and they will sail up, I think to Gulf as well to trade in clay pots and fish and all these things. In the islands as well, we would trade pigs with stone axes, and then we would trade it for salt as well. The Angan people were famous for production of salt. And at times we would go down to the coast to trade for toya and kina shells. All the kina shells that you have up in the highlands, when we come out in full traditional regalia, we would proudly wear our kina shells in our front. But then you would note that there's no ocean. So islands. So there's no ocean up in the islands. So that means that the origins of the shell must have come from the coastal people. And people must have gone down and traded it. So those are some of the earliest form of transactions, creating relationships, and basically this was the barter system that occurred. So around 1870s, you would see Australian gold prospectors. They came to Papua New Guinea, the Waubulolo area, the Sogeri area. They came to mine golds, and they were sort of mining golds and then transporting off to overseas, mostly Australia and the United Kingdom. But in 1973, a young, vibrant, the late, great Michael Somare basically was appointed Chief Minister of Papua New Guinea. And he looked at the economic sort of perspective and aspect of how the country was to progress and develop. And he was of the view that we needed some sort of guiding sort of points or pointers that would guide the economic sort of aspects as Papua New Guinea developed into a democracy. So he came up with the 8-point plan, and I've listed the 8-point plan for there. So the first thing he talked about was the rapid increase in the proportion of the economy under the control of Papua New Guinea. He said that Papua New Guineans must control the economy. At the time, foreigners, the colonizers, had huge plantations. They controlled a lot of the resources and they controlled the role of the businesses. When Somare came in, he said, the first point, I want a huge portion of this economy to come under Papua New Guineans. The second thing he talked about is that a more equal distribution of economic benefits, including equal share of income among people and equal services among different parts of the country. So he said that service delivery must reach all parts of the country equally. The third is distribution of economic activities and emphasis on agricultural development, village industry, and internal trade. He said because we are subsistence farmers, we must not leave that roots, so we must not diversify from that roots. We must take up on economic activities that will basically emphasize on agricultural development in the village and empower the people directly at the village. Then he talked about an emphasis on small-scale artisan service and business activity. So there's a lot of money must be put in SMEs, small and medium-term enterprises, and we must try to build our economy from the ground up. Also, he talked about a more self-reliant economy, less dependent on important goods and services. The economy must be diversified so that it's self-sustaining. We can be able to produce everything that we need and produce extra so that the economy can survive on its internal production rather than relying on importation of goods and services. All right, he talked about an increased capacity to meet government expenditure from locally raised revenue. He wanted revenue to be raised locally. That means that he wanted more Papuans to be employed so that they pay the taxes. He wanted more Papuan businesses so that they pay company tax. He wanted more Papuans to take part in the economic and industry so that they can be able to basically raise the state's revenue. All right, and then also we talk about rapid increase in equal and active participation of women in forms of economic and social activity. Basically, recognize gender equality so that women are an important and integral part of Papua New Guinea. They must be at the forefront of development in partnership with the men, and together, men and women of Papua New Guinea, or Papua New Guineans, Melanesians, must carry this country forward. And the last thing he talked about was that the government control and investment in the sectors of the economy were control was necessary to achieve the desired outcome of the economy. So he said more sort of investment must be done in the Papua New Guinean economy, and this was basically to carry out or to achieve the aims of the economy. All right, so that was sort of the task given to by Samara in 1973 under the 8-point plan. All right, so after that, we know that PNG became independent in 1975. Then there was an important emphasis on PNG's economically being an independent from the colonizers. So we wanted economic independence as well as political independence. And in 1979, an IMF sort of advisor recommended the government to get price right in terms to dealing with public enterprises. So he said at the time, because the government was just fairly new and independent, there was more sort of emphasis on investment into public enterprises like power and water utility companies, so that it be owned by the state and it can be subsidized to provide services at a minimal cost to the people. So when it came up into the 1980s and 90s, there was an emphasis on economic growth. The government was cautious in its budgetary policy because of a lack of resources, and there was a decline in sort of revenue base to provide the stabilizing role in the economy. It was before the mines and everything. But in the 1985, 80% of people were still engaged subsistence farmers, were subsistence farmers. And then the first 10 years after independence, you would note that may summarize this as a gradual diminishing dependence on aid under the government's Arkina strategy, and economic management was sound. So, but at the time, then the 1990s coming up, there was good economic management. By 1996, the PNG government established a viable financial system. PNG kina was exchanged at a rate of about 1 kina equals 1 kina $54. And PNG was greatly assisted by showing by supportive governments acted with reasonable fiscal restraint. So this means that, at the time in the 90s, our forefathers basically adopted a very sort of robust and very sort of good strategy where they were able to keep the financial system viable, and they showed reasonable fiscal restraint. That means that they did not just go on a spending spree, spend money and then left, right, and center, committed on projects. Basically, what they did was they sort of cautiously and carefully raised revenue and cautiously and carefully spent the revenue that they raised. Right, from 1999 to 2002, the government embarked on developing a privatization policy. The late great Sir Mecca Morata came in as Prime Minister. He announced that there would be a restructure, there would be a revisitation of all the policies, and he said that he wanted to achieve 5 objectives. He wanted to restore integrity to our institutions of the state. He wanted to stabilize the currency. He wanted to introduce stability to the national budget and remove obstacles to investment and growth. And he wanted to continue with the Bougainville peace process. So at the time, basically, when Mikhail Morita came in, he was an economist by profession, and he said he wanted a push for privatization policy. So PNGBC was sold and then was privatized in the eye of the Bank of South Pacific. And he put in some economic measures to try and stabilize the currency, and he wanted to restore stability in the budget. All right, as we go on forward, we had the benefit of the PNG Energy project that was started in Papua New Guinea. It brought a staggering $19 billion investment into the economy, and basically it sustained a positive economic growth. Unfortunately, because of the UBS loan and UBS deal, you had a lot of discrepancies in the way the expenditure was controlled and the way the revenue generated was spent as well. So we did make a loss along the way as well, but the company responsible for administering the PNG sort of state equity in the LNG project or proceeds from it. PNG Kumu Petroleum Holdings Limited has now recovered from the UPS loan and is making progress towards a positive balance sheet, and it's generating revenue and declaring profits and investing it back into the economy. The Papua LNG project is coming up. The Pinyang project is coming up as well. The Wafi Golpu project is coming up. You would note that there are a lot of big projects. We're at the crossroads right now. If we manage the country properly and the economic policies properly, you would see that there will going to be a successful sort of economic management of the country. Unfortunately, if we mismanage it, if we don't control the economy properly, if we spend money unnecessarily on government policy that does not bring a return on investment back to the country, you would see that we will face very severe economic sort of indicators. Basically, inflation prices will go up, taxes will go up, and people will find it hard to survive based on the salary. So that's why it's very important that in terms of management of the economy, it has to run parallel with the management of law and order as well, and the applicability of the rule of law, so that there is a basically a good sort of support around the fact that we can build a good economy to sustain our population. All right, thank you very much for listening in. Now, the next two sort of lecture videos will be on how to read law. Thank you.